Anyway, I guess we should return to
It's really how these things evolve, especially in the context of Nigerian society where, you have like generally antagonistic relationship between the leadership or the people on top and the people below. And it's the same thing that kind of morphs into the music industry, the cultural industry or cultural sphere,
yeah.
the economy, everywhere. So these things will just grasp themselves and replay in another fashion in the music industry. Okay, you have a CEO first that gives you like predatory deals or record label deal or signings. Then maybe when
Yeah.
it doesn't work for you or you kind of have your understanding of what you're inside of and you want to change that, then it results into violence or harassment, intimidation, all that. Essentially, if you want to fight for your right or you want to make sure that things are straightened up, then you get like resistance, something
Yeah.
like that. So, and it shows the failure of all these so-called musical bodies, waiting people and they do waiting music performing at association, waiting all these people they do. Where we say if artists come out or if they want come out now with fights, now no form of resolution until person die or it
Mm.
turn messy scandal and all that. So and it also reflects say nothing they
Yeah.
structural, nothing they institutionalized to ensure that you have like at least an amicable resolution of this problem before it spills into someone losing their life or something. And then the infiltration of cultism, violence, intimidation into music,
Yeah.
and then
So,
knowing fully well, almost like say, if we beat this artist, if we hurt him physically or do anything, nothing is going to come out of it, because we have like failing institutions or institutions that have failed
yeah.
in guaranteeing people's, safety, well-being, So all these
So,
things morph together. It's not an isolated, it's not one singular problem, but it's a web of problems that culminated into that high point of the guy dying. Because institutions don't fail all around. You don't report to police, nobody answer you, you do petition, nobody answer you, you do video, nobody pick them up. Now until the guy died before anything
so,
turn.
I've not really, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and those seem like very familiar themes for sure. I've not really engaged with the details for my sins. So, like, what really happened? So, I guess Naira Marley is the person who was running the record label that Mohbad was
Yeah.
under.
Yeah, that's what I
Mm.
heard. It's not like I have like 100% grip of the thing way happened, but waiting I
Yeah,
know, and from the little way I know, I say, like I say, the guy, I think he signed to Naira Marley's record label. Of course,
right.
there's a documentary online that
Okay.
shows Naira Marley's antecedents in the UK, part of a gang, being violent. If you go into his lyrics, what he says, all that you reflecting the kind of
Well,
life and past where
okay, but now why people they like Naira Marley before now?
well,
So that one
that's
no be
another another
so.
discussion. That's another discussion because me, I'm not listening to music anyway now because person die under in record label and him the guy can become more popular anyway. So
Yeah.
but they brought that architecture or mode of operation into Lagos, has a record or has a record label, signed this mobile guy or something, and
Mm.
maybe the dealings between them no they go well. The guy attempted or was attempting to leave the record label, and they had to use backdoor channel to threaten, intimidate, harass the guy. There's numerous videos where they beat the guy up. There was
Mm.
one particular one where they were shooting a video and one guy called Sam Larry or was this street muscles or thugs where then get they try slap the guy. They try to
Okay.
rough the guy up in general. He's been going through a lot of intimidation inside of that Naira Marley's record label.
Yeah.
So up until when we just heard that he died. So when he died, or this news started floating around, videos came up from different places about how they've been beating him up, EFCC or NDLE harassing him, Naira Marley, talking about how the guy get problems, numerous voice notes here and there, but the theme that struck out was that this has, endured intimidation all through while he did at record label, and a lot of institutions that were supposed to nip this thing in the bud before the guy died failed to do that. Failed to do that. And it even calls in question the music industry itself. Like, what are all the OGs doing? Waiting everybody they do up until the point where young people, but like you mentioned, the style of their music, what they talk about, makes it easy for you to just use your hand to say, well, that's all they're talking about anyway. So until person can't lose their life. So now the contradiction we did there be that say, okay, it's not all fun and games on, or it's not all fun and games until person that, so it's that's what I saw. Yeah.
Right. So Megan, what do you think about why this incident has had such a effect on the youth then? I mean, why are people responding so passionately? What's your feeling? What's your feeling on that?
My feeling is that even though like I said, a while back, I didn't quite know Mohbad, at least not as Mohbad, or even Imole, but I'd heard his songs and a few of them had stuck. So this was like kind of a revelation for me. Maybe the word is, some sort of confirmation for some theories, that people have put out about, the current scene, with the Nigerian music industry. A lot of that, OAG has touched upon. The structure of the music industry itself. So it could have been any other record label, bar just a few.
Okay.
But record labels in Nigeria, how are they organized? How are they regulated? What's the structure that enforces contractual agreements? So there's a bit of that. My guess is that Mohbad, and this is after the fact, from where I am standing, what I knew about him, so I'm finding out more about, the guy after his death, as opposed to, really following his music, as it progressed. But just that just tells you, where the music industry is right now. So it's become much bigger. You have much more players in it. But the question is, what's the value of, the majority of players, especially artists, who then get the short end of the stick, once these contracts are drawn out. Sometimes they don't even have legal representation, and maybe because of the level of education that most of them, managed to attain before, which is, I think, something that's peculiar in Mohbad's own instance, because, what I gather is that it's not like he dropped out of school, but he didn't quite go beyond, the secondary school level, after which I think he went to learn carpentry. So I guess what I'm trying to say in essence is that Mohbad's death hits very close to home for a lot of people, people within the industry who fit his profile, who are the majority of the players in it, and then people outside of the industry who are fans, who like good music, but who more importantly can identify with Mohbad's message, his discography in that sense, because now that he's dead, I mean, I don't know the facts. Like I said, I don't know if he's done an album. I don't know whether he just has singles and then he's featured, or he's had people. So that's something that I'll get to much later. But just the general feelers, and this, like I said also earlier, and it's not from what I've been able to consume of social media. This is just word that I've heard on the street. People are angry, people are issuing threats. It's and then they're all keeping up with the investigation that's currently ongoing. Because this then has somehow put the limelight's now on the police, force to again, so there's a degree there's an extent to which you can kind of, maybe it's a lazy framing, but under some kind, how the rich, or how organizations, prey on talent, or if you like, how they prey on workers. So that I'm sure there's a conversation for capital against labor to be had there somewhere.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I want to come back to the question of the social protests themselves, their extent and character. But I think we are, and I think it's good spending a bit of time setting a context around the music industry and the nature of the contractual relationship and what led to the guy's passing. So one thing that kind of confuses me still about that is isn't Naira Marley supposed to be some kind of proto-anarchist, weed smoking, sort of sexually libertine, symbol of Nigerian youth, throwing off the shackles of cultural conservatism to embrace more of a partially anarchistic lifestyle? I mean, wasn't that the whole promise of the Marlian movement? So
they are highly mistaken about that one.
I mean, I'm not the only one who's arguing this. It's a perspective that other people have advanced. For instance, there's an Africa is a Country article called "Good Influence," where the author says Mali might not be Fela or whatever, but they have a certain kind of revolution, or at least a cultural revolution, even if not a political one, that they're pursuing. Is it that we are mistaken in thinking that, or that's that was never the case, or has that
greatly mistaken? I'd say greatly mistaken. Same person they misbehave and care about anything. That you're misbehaving and you don't care about anything doesn't mean that you are free. The amount of rubbish or the height to which you can climb to do rubbish doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily equate to being free. You can just be oriented or have a stupid orientation or orientation that is wrong, thinking what you are doing is, say you smoke, they explore your sexuality and all that. If you understand that now inside oppression, those things, you're not only going to express yourself in by being freer or by doing things your way, you also tackle oppression, joining that thing where they do.
Right.
It's not that you'll be putting your fan base or all the other guys that are listening to you in much more problems, or much more misleading. What's on the flip side of waiting they do, smoking, whatever, what are the other positive things, where the guy they do? way they promote with the music, you know, that kind of thing. From the general stuff, or from the few way maybe say you dey inside boss, you dey hear, or you dey unfortunate to hear am for YouTube, whatever. The message no dey positive. Like I can tell you that I be Yoruba speaker, I be Yoruba listeners. His message, like I'll never allow any young person maybe they hear that kind of bullshit where you know,
okay.
where in
No,
this.
but is Mohbad much different from that in terms of the
I've
message?
not till now. I don't know any of Mohbad's music. Till now,
Okay.
I can tell you,
Right.
I've never heard any. But it's just the structure and the occurrences where comes together to lead to the guy's death, and how you know other factors like cultism, failure of the police, failure of the music industry, all that. I told you by myself. When I did school, when I did in like me and my guy, we did rap group. So there was this other guy we come say, oh, in the field,
you the lace tracks back then.
yeah, with the last track, you know, at least they like
yeah.
the rap, they do one or two things. So there was this guy we say, he feel our shit, or say, he go like link us to one guy, we be like music, maybe he can get like record label, say maybe he don't work with that green before, but he can get record label, blah, blah, blah. Say he go link two of us up, me and my guy up with the guy. So we shall agreed on the dates. The guy came to Unilag to meet us somewhere around Unilag. Okay. So me and my guy just casually we go see the guy, hey, what's up?
You kick some freestyles.
Yeah, you know, me say we didn't even kick any freestyle because that one probably don't carry music. Go give him.
Okay.
So when we came and saw the guy, he just say, "Mo, greet him." Say, how far? Waiting there for no. The guy told us, you know, they crazy. You know, if he prostrate something. They don't start oppression straight. They've started that bullshit like. You don't know who they follow talk. You can't you don't know say na something. You can't who you want they shake, who you want they greet. You go prostrate for your. Me and my guy just walked out. Like, what the fuck is all this? You think, you know, like we just left the ship because it wasn't like we were desperate. It was just stuff we love to do. And nobody like say if we no do we no go chop or whatever. You know, so that's another angle where poverty they play and lack of maybe opportunity or maybe where many of these artists they feel say if they know this not their only shot out of poverty or being able to put food on the table or put food on the table. Maybe if now my only shot be that at that point in time, I'll have probably prostrated to the guy.
Yeah, sure.
Apologize, say, you know, but it felt so nasty.
Yeah.
I'm like, how you go to follow person where you they talk? I'll be person where you never meet, someone you've not met before, and you're talking to us like this because what you want to start that domination. You know, which they probably go to replicate on top other artists across board like that. You know, so this is just a microcosm. If we had gone and followed the guy, you know, who knows what's going to happen if they threaten person with thugs, if they, you know, so but that was a really little experience where I see like that made me understand properly how deeper this guy's case might have been. You know, where we say we can't see different stories or videos online of them harassing or terrorizing the guy, you know. So that's it. Like you just have to, if you're claiming some sort of positivity or some sort of freedom, then it comes with a high level of responsibility, which this Naira Marley guy doesn't have. I'm not out here to judge, but you know, get that responsibility. You know, so that's it. If something they come, more check the net. Is she a net positive? She a net negative? We not say make you no smoke. We not say make you no do anything you want to. But you still guys get positive aspects. You know, we go overweigh or we go outweigh that one way they do. You know, but these guys just come and make an already culturally weak and decadent society even weaker and more decadent, and in a way demobilizing the youths towards more constructive pursuits towards justice and all that, you know. So they do much more harm than good, I would say. Yeah, much more harm than good, you know, because they have listenership, they have followership, you know. So how, you know, if you just morph that thing into, at times, political movements, all that, you know, all the keke na people you see around, you go see my Naira Marley picture on top of them now. You know, so what's in the happen? What's in there? How we know if we can convert that thing to positive energy, you know? But no day, that now the key point and say that positive thing where we want to talk, say the guy, you know, they, you know. So Yeah, that opportunity
So
day, but
no, that's fair. I mean, Mega, do you largely agree that in a way maybe Marlianism has collapsed under the weight of its own internal contradictions, or do you think there's still something to Marlianism, and maybe even the protests in support of Mohbad are reflecting a certain Malian aesthetic? Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Maybe you are. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that to even have to take a stab at the question, perhaps means that we have some rudimentary understanding of what Marlianism is, and I wouldn't be the best person, to know.
Are you sure?
No, I wouldn't.
Mega, but you did for Lagos now. You did near the area in some ways. I mean, not really, but kind of.
But you should be, say if I switch off, I don't switch off. So
Right.
I don't really. I've been no first get the craze about initially, and did I make an effort to? Yes.
Okay.
Through reading some of my own friends who are invested in
who are Malians.
who critique the Malian phenomenon. I think it first burst on the scene with the No Belt gang thing. I don't know if that was an aftermath of the Mali phase, or they came together. But I wasn't sold by it, but I kept on asking. But I wasn't sold. In fact, I think more accurately, I was indifferent.
Marlianism.
It was, but it was not. It didn't take paying too much attention to understand that there was something about his vibe, that had seeped into a cross section of society, within the demography of very young Nigerians. And I think that's what I was more interested in, how this one guy could have that much effect on a significant number of young Nigerians. I guess that it was just they could see one way of rebelling, and one way that question is thrust upon you is to think about his own profile, too. So this is a guy from Peckham, Nigerian heritage, lived all his life there. He did street for Peckham, and anybody who knows Peckham knows that it's a really Niger for London, so he's steeped in the cultural aspects of his tradition, or the traditional aspects of his culture, whichever one works. But so I think the buzz around him was when he then decided to come into the music scene. And so, I mean, you figure now, looking back, that this guy didn't come and started, and he was looking for it. I don't know what his trajectory is, to be honest, but I shall not say it be like, say, carry money come, or within he kind of knew the music side, the business side of the music industry, or so even if he started on the label, or he needed a hand when he first came onto the scene, which of course is what you'd expect. It didn't take time for him to build his own label, if you like, empire within the music industry. And of course, he had already begun to gather massive following, But much lower down the rungs were the likes of Mohbad, whose own profiles are, entirely different from
Naira Marley.
Yeah, so I guess Mohbad's profile is one that the average guy, average Nigerian can relate to, it's what's real to him, even though Naira Marley has that buzz around him, his profile is a bit distant for most Nigerians. So
right.
So
he was seen as a kind of street guy, but you're saying that, like, his own street guyness came from Peckham, whereas there's like you know, like street past street kind of thing, right?
Yeah, his street guyness come from Peckham. The fact saying come from Peckham, they say he fitted into the high middle class in Nigeria, regardless of
Mm.
what his own musical trajectory was,
Right.
and then in no distant time, I mean, depending on how he evolved, he had very sound knowledge of the business side of the music industry. So, I mean, I'm sure that part of his exit strategy was that he was going to have a record label and sign young guys. I mean, that would have been what was natural because,
Mm.
these guys were already gravitating towards him. But, the guys who then gravitated towards him, and I don't want this to be just about Naira Marley. I think that that's
Sure.
like a structural analysis of the music industry. So when you think about um, the breakthrough for most, and why it's become a game of many, many players, even though you want to stratify them, is to say that there's a bit of Yahoo money, internet fraud money,
Mm.
maybe even
Mm-hmm.
drug money that came
Sure.
into the building of the Nigerian music industry at in its present state.
Sure.
Okay. Then that then coincides, and this is important, with some sort of advancement, in technology for which
Mm-hmm.
the music industry globally then sits on.
Mm.
So how people consume music is different. Um, how videos are produced has become different, the stories that they tell.
Mm.
The Nigerian society also has changed, somewhat from what it was maybe in the 80s or maybe even in the 90s. So we're talking about something that began to happen in the noughties, right? So that also has its own role, to
Yeah.
play because um, what it means is that because there are many people who are getting um, um,
Well.
returns, if you like,
Yeah.
from their activities within, the crime world, but who are looking to launder their money through um, the music industry and who are doing it already. You would also, what you would find is that the structure that guaranteed success in the crime world is almost the same structure that it would bring to bear
Right. Right.
in the by any legal
Sure.
frameworks. So
So,
I think
so
that this is a
yeah.
teachable moment for all of us. Right.
Mm. So I guess despite on the surface seeming to be countercultural, anti-institutional, and um, kind of, yeah, I guess culturally radical to some extent, um, the kind of actual practical infrastructure of the record label um, mirrored the regular gatekeeping, hierarchical structure of Nigerian society in general. So, and when this guy, Mohbad, like sought to renegotiate his contract or try to get a better deal, then, he started to face kind of recrimination and this sort of stuff, right? I mean, that's the picture you guys are painting, and ultimately got to the level where I think he was actually beat up, right, by some of like Naira Marley's goons or something like that, resulting in his or contributing to, I think, what is as yet a fairly unclear, um, like, set of circumstances that led to his death. So then, what about the protest? I mean, does this, to you guys, suggest that the protests are about that hierarchical structure, about the music industry more generally, and about like how it reflects the ills of Nigerian society? Or are they really more so just about the personality of Mohbad and, a kind of general sympathy for the things he faced? Because those seem like slightly different things to me. And I'm not, before we get to assessing whether one is better or worse, I just want to clarify, like, so what are the protests really about? Is it does it go deeper than a feeling of, empathy for Mohbad and feeling like, okay, the people who assaulted him and, like gave him a hard time should face justice? Or is it more or less limited to that as far as you guys can tell? Or if you want to
Let's not forget. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
not forget, this is a young country in terms of demographics. Like, and most of the people we see on TV or people that we hear on radio, all that, they're going to be people we have some sort of connection to. And in a way, the problems that befall them will be seen as what befalls the young people generally across board, And Emeka has alluded to something like that, saying that a lot of people on the streets or in the streets can relate to these guys. The misfortunes or fortunes that these guys have, you can almost say that as a young person in the streets, this can happen to you. It just be like that NSAS thing too. A lot of people connected with that struggle, and that's why they are here. And it affects almost the same demographic, with this thing they affect. So a lot of young people can connect with this, and they're out here, But a much more helpful approach or look at it will be from the structural aspect, that what's the structure that keeps going into or making police force rotten, music rotten, culture rotten, everything is just rotting away right in front of our eyes. And the side effects of that rotting away is what we are seeing in terms of cutting people's lives short. If it's SARS shooting people, the streets being unsafe, university institutions or all these these schools raising prices, or lecturers predating on girls or ladies in their faculties. Like, there's this antagonistic vibe, that the leadership or the rulers of the country have casted or molded this image, the image of the country, such that everything becomes toxic. Everything becomes toxic towards the young people that are trying to find one way or the other to survive, So they can connect with it. It's this general sense of frustration. It's this general sense of, I wouldn't say total helplessness, because coming together now, you feel that, oh yeah, this should drive us towards something. But if we combat the music industry today, we've combated police or SARS, the security agencies, a couple of years ago. Now we're combating music, we're combating the educational institution. Let's just fix the system such that everything that the superstructure of society is encompassed of will be towards a positive direction. Now, that's where we're supposed to go to. Because if we had a country that was well organized, then it means that we can't be doing music the way we're doing it. The content of the music self will not go be the same thing, dare I say, in as much as we want free reach. It won't be the same thing, the way they take organized schools not going to be the same thing. The economic arrangement won't be the same thing. It's that struggle between capital and labor that you feel you have to exploit people, that you feel you have to take advantage of the next man, that's been pushed to the extreme, whereby if you have an artist, you want to do all you can to extract most of the surplus away from the guy, be it now employing back-end methods of dealing with the person, violence, intimidation, or putting contracts where no make sense. And look at the legal system again, like all these things, where we they see all these kind of contracts where they make people almost be like slave for music industry, Yeah, they can argue that that's the way they do their 360 deals and all that, but how are we going to fold our arms and just let all these things go by? Because if you look at it's like almost all institutions in the country, they are the detriment of the people, the ordinary people, where no get money, where the lower class, where one can sell their labor, that kind of thing.
Well,
So
I guess the question I'm trying to pose is like, no, I hear you. That's fair. As a analysis of the system that produces these kinds of effects. But I guess what I'm trying to understand better is the protest, the responses to this system, the protests that have arisen. Do you think they're trying to address these issues at the structural level? I mean, are they raising structural questions about, now let's not even get to the nature of capitalism and its manifestation in Nigeria. even just the question of the music industry more generally and the nature of contracts, are those the kinds of concerns being raised by the protest, or has it more so been specifically about jailing Naira Marley? I mean, because those are two different things, right? And I mean, yeah, if it's is restricted to the question of Marley particularly, then the limitations are perhaps obvious. So I just wonder what you guys think about the protests themselves, as to the extent that you've engaged with them so far. Like, do you see any kind of, you know, systematic or system-wide criticism? Is there any kind of radicalism to them to some extent? Or because, and I raise this question, I mean, not only in respect to the issue itself, but in respect to the wider economic context right now. I mean, if you say there's an issue with Naira, yes, I mean, you could say that the more fundamental issue with Naira is the issue with the Naira, as in the fact that the currency is more or less in free fall right now, and the fact that, like, we're facing an austerity regime that probably we've not seen since the 80s. So that amidst that kind of economic crunch, I mean, that social anguish gets channeled in this particular way is fairly striking. And I wonder if there's a certain missed opportunity here, or whether you see this as containing certain seeds of you know, a wider criticism that can be cultivated.
Like I said, it's the same pitfalls way before NSAS movements. Naim one kind of before this one, because what I've seen so far, it just simply ends at justice for Mohbad. Okay, so we catch the guys, do the autopsy, find out what's in kill him, and boom, that's all. No one is really pushing for how the music industry is organized, where the form of dirty money will enter, you know, where they can't embolden these guys to act. Nobody's talking about all that one for now, you know, except maybe one or two people that I've heard say stuff about that. But this has not been the forefront of the struggle. Of course, yeah, justice for the person we then kill, you know, but it's seeming to want to end at that at the moment, you know. So, but it will be delightful to see it being pushed past that, you know, so that the young guys that actually have talent and that want to make something of themselves via music can go in there, do it safely, and, you know, give us that real Afrobeat music where don't they change the world, you know. So that's what I feel. But for now, it's simply ending at that, just finding the guys who killed the guy, and maybe, you know, justice will come happen to them. But it's not, right. No one is asking about Pima. No one they ask where all these guys did. Nobody they ask where all these music institutions did, the legal system, police, medical. In fact, they say some kind doctors, they inject the guy, be one nurse. Who they like? Yeah. Which system make us get? Which process they follow to inject person? We like, let's look at all these things. It's the total decay of the superstructure of society. Naim, they show at every corner, at every junction, where we say, okay, hospital failed the guy, security agent failed the guy, how we take our arrange music system, you know, a music institution failed the guy, everything failed the guy, you know. So is after we find waiting Duam, are we going to protest or move forward to solving, you know, those problems, or wait for the next victim again, you know, because they just, university, people for universities, ladies just protested about lecturers sexually assaulting them because of, you know, say maybe they did law school or something like that. Now another failure be that, you know, a hike in school fees a day. Now another failure be that. So are we waiting till the next catastrophe before we look at the system as a whole that produces this, you know, this cannibalistic society we're inside of, you know, that is now eating up the youth one after the other, you know, in different dimensions, or, you know. So that's the thing, like, we have to look at the system as a whole, so that we know go just they enter one door, they open them, they close them, they enter, like, you know, running around. So that's it.
Yeah, Megan, what do you think?
Okay. I don't know. So for me, I think that we need to be careful how we how we demand change. Okay. And part of the reason why I say this is that, I mean, maybe like a decade ago, or yeah, in the last decade, I guess, there's all this there's been some kind of excitement about how much entertainment is added to GDP. And as we all know, 1%, 2% to GDP is significant. Okay. But the conversation that didn't quite um, get discussed at the time was this GDP, this money where they go entertainment, where's it even coming from? Where's the bulk of it coming from? You know, okay. Even though we know, say, yeah, a lot of them now Yahoo money. That's what actually blew the Nigerian music industry. There are outliers, the Davidos, of this world who come from, but the guys who paid for who built studios and gave studio time to, they were not the artists, they're not the talents,
Sure.
all of that. Okay.
Right.
So
They're
we
some
need
of
to,
our own their own sponsors on the Nigerian scam show. I
yeah,
mean, certain kinds of
yeah,
people who,
you know,
yeah, yeah, okay.
and that's a gradual shift from where music used to be before then, which was a lot of praise singing and then hoping on the magnanimity of philanthropists or money bags of society who weren't also very um, weren't exactly very clean figures anyways, but
No,
but it's a kind of transition, so we need to pay attention to some of these things. I said that to say that there are times when change, I mean, in as much as we want a revolution, but I think that there are times when we must also understand that change will be aggressive, and in asking for, because part of what's running through my head now is, this is not the same thing with them NWA face for Yankee. Should be like the 70s or so. So it's about stages of capitalism. Say we they chase them, but this is what's playing out here.
sure.
Now, to answer the question about what the impulse for these protests are, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things in this whole sad story. The response that his death, has gotten, and how that has transformed into some kind of demand for accountability. I think it's significant, to know that this guy had been buried, but the mass outpouring of, you know, sympathy, of empathy, of grief, has then compelled the Nigerian police force to exhume his body, and
Sure.
so there's some sort of coroner's inquest going on, and then we'll get some feedback, you know. Um, I'm being careful not to go into some of the conversations that that are popping up, on the streets, But one of that conversation, because a lot of them is, we don't know which ones are being spawned by fabulists, and so it's a dangerous place to tread in. But we've heard all sorts of things, there. And then in this age of the internet, where content is now king, everybody's trying to put out something to get some sort of social media traction and all of that.
Everybody except us,
But
of course, because I mean, we are of course beyond all of that, but yeah,
now
back to you.
you know. But I guess that the point I'm making is I don't think that you know we can be definitive as to what the impulses are. I think that the impulses vary, but you can be rest assured, and I think that's what you're alluding with your ridiculousness. That there are few of us who are thinking about it, in the structural sense, in the broader perspective, in ways that figure how capitalism and labor are at loggerheads, or usually at loggerheads. But this is also a definitive time to make demands that would sort of reshape the way, this is one of those times. I mean, if we owe it to Mohbad, if we owe anything to him, it would be to kind of address some of these anomalies, So my guess is that the first thing is that, people are going to get some kind of accountability, and those who need closure would get some sort of closure. But part of the things that people don't get, especially the boys on the street who are really angry, and I guess, even more than Naira Marley, the guy they're most angry with is the Sammy Larry, Sam Larios, or whatever his name is, because this guy isn't, from what I gather, isn't really invested in the music industry in that sense, or maybe as a financier, but he seems to.
So he's invested, but he's not a musician. Like, he's put money inside.
Okay. Because the sense sometimes that I get is that he's like a muscle man,
Okay.
Muscle man.
He's an enforcer. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a bit, and there are all sorts of conspiracy theories going on there, So, sure. Which is why I'd like to limit my own intervention to these structures and how Mohbad, is in a sense like a sacrificial lamb. I don't think that if anybody planned to kill him or anybody planned to take his life, the person would have reckoned, that they'll get this sort of blowback. And I think that the blowback is massive, and then the impulse, would vary, but that it will be predominantly tilting towards accountability as to, we want to know how this guy died. Did he die of natural causes, or
So you're hopeful, Emeka. It sounds like that the protest will actually achieve something, if not structural change at the level of capitalist social relations, the sort of thing that keeps OAG up at night. At least legal changes, or accountability, as you put it, at the level of this individual life that has been lost. I guess, that's so. Is that what you're saying? First of all, that you hold out some hope for that in this situation?
No, I think that the most enduring thing that Mohbad's death would have done, and the last moments of his life leading up to his death. And I kind of understand, but I've heard so many things, so I'm not even sure which one fits into what story. But I think I heard that, Mohbad actually had left the Marley record label. He had sat out his contract and he had started to do stuff. I mean, he had done something.
I think so. I think OG was saying that earlier.
Yeah, so in the moments before his death, I think that young talents, young artists who are already in the music industry but haven't broken out or broken even, who aren't stars yet. And there's a sense in which Mohbad wasn't exactly a big star, I mean, he was known massively in the hoods. And by the hoods, I'm not just talking about Ikorodu, where, he grew up, where he kind of, sprang from. But I'm saying hoods across, the country, across the length. And
okay, but I want to pose a slightly more fundamental question here, because OEG was trying to move us in a slightly more political direction, as it were, where we've now talked a little about the industry and its particularities, and we've talked about the Mohbad and Malian situation, and we're talking a bit about the protest now, right? And I guess the question that I'm posing to you, I mean, OEG offered his answer in terms of saying that he can see some of the pitfalls of NSAS in this. I think the question for you is, like, yeah, like, do these protests give you hope and optimism? Really, like, is there at a moment like this, like given the wider social issues that surround and partially result in incidents like this, do you feel like this protest is the kind of thing that will actually improve conditions for youth in general, for artists, or even for Mohbad's immediate contemporaries? I mean, how do you assess the protests themselves? I mean, you were kind of getting there, but I wondered if you posing it more directly would give you an opportunity to tackle it head on.
I mean, the way I see it, if all this achieves is that artists who are about to sign up to record label in Nigeria become increasingly more aware of the fact that they need to think about the business side and they need to secure the business side of deals, and it's not that that desperation doesn't just cut it. If they get fairer deals, if they sign, if this changes the nature of the deals that are being signed, I think that Mohbad won't have died in vain.
Sure.
Asking that it transforms or transitions into some sort of structural change is many degrees out. I think the best that can come out of this is that his demise would probably also have, placed some light on the relationship between private interests, the intersection between big capital, private interest, not big capital, private enterprises and, the state. So I think that at the heart of why people are angry is that this guy has written letters to the police, and this guy had, many evidence, video evidences around, suggesting that this guy's life was being threatened, that he was being oppressed, so I guess it's not like the average Nigerian doesn't know this already. Now, big man.
But that's the point now. Like,
yeah,
the thing that you're saying people will learn from this situation, it strikes me that it's something that people already knew. I mean, like OEG was saying, when the guy came to Unilag's campus to try to recruit OAG, already back then it was the like, can you double it to me? How dare you try to shake my hand culture in place. So naturally, it's not like that guy was going to then give OAG a nice contract. And, and that's why OAG walked away. But OAG was in a position to walk away, right? Because he was already reading Fanon, and he was already, he was getting good grades on campus. But he was moments away.
Down well with me, Probably if I was poor or something, like maybe I don't know where my next meal they come from. Shit, I probably don't take the deal. Babano Vex, Babano, all this bullshit.
But that's precisely the point, right? Like, will the fact that this guy experienced this change the desperation that those young artists are facing, which has been intensified by, again, the actual Naira, which I don't want
Thank you. I mean, I want Naira, right? There's a material reason. Yeah. That's the material reason for youth falling prey, to this system. Yeah. So that's the material. That Naira itself that you mentioned.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is that I don't want to read, a lot of meaning into how people what comes out of this. I mean, but I'm sure that even if at the material level, right, these are what the issues are. Right. Mohbad's death would have created more awareness for people who fit his profile to say, that means we can actually ask for better deals, and there are people who would offer services to say, okay, if you're an artist and you're looking to sign up for a record label, I'm a
We
lawyer
check
who,
a contract out.
I think this has brought it more to the fore. It's been something because Mohbad's struggle was with trying to leave the record label. That's where his problem started. This is where he started to face persecution, face some sort of oppression. So his struggle was how to leave the record label, which many other people have silence. I mean, because his death then opened a flurry of these kinds of episodes. So it's not thing new within the Nigerian music industry, but I think it's also the first time given this kind of instance where a body has had to be exhumed just so that people are sure. So it gives a whole different dimension to the entire. It should give a whole different. I mean, because there are people who aren't as lucky as OAG. The Mobads, like the Mobads, weren't lucky as OAG. But going forward, I think that guys that has caused created enough awareness for those kinds of people to know that they're not put gun for your head now until you sign the contract. So if this contract not they favorable, because I've heard that Mohbad wrote 80% of the songs on Naira Marley's label, in terms of writing the lyrics,
That's crazy.
and in the time since his death, his songs are, I think they're number one, in some countries, the top of the charts in different countries, which means that even royalties that are supposed to be accruing to this. So these are the thing is that the record label, they bring you into a contract, they tie you into a contract where you sign away all of your earnings, pretty much, and it didn't start today. There's a case of how Sonia Ade was also ripped off, early his career. I mean, these things are, they're not a decade old problem or 20 decades old problem. It's almost as old as fraud itself.
But okay, and you could say that contracts that favor the employer over the laborer are as old as capitalism itself, right? Presumably, that's kind of what the system is about. So let me pose the question another way. I mean, so it kind of, I guess what I'm saying when I say that is, it seems like the discussion or the protest is at the cusp of touching on something deeper, more fundamental, at least to music, if not across contracts in general. But it stopped short. And, I guess OAG is dissatisfied by that. Whereas it sounds, Emeka, like you're saying that maybe asking for more than we're getting from the protest is asking too much. But then,
it's not asking. It's not asking too much. It's raising your hopes too much.
Right.
I guess.
No, but I don't think anybody is saying that we expect this to naturally become something more structural, to become more structural. More that we're just pointing out, I think, that it does stop short of that. And I think there's even another way to frame it. I mean, so again, I don't want to move too far away from the issue of the Naira, and the economic condition. So it's you could see the situation as, in some ways, people from the urban margins, like, because Emeka, you're talking about places like Ikorodu and like the hood, so to speak, in various parts of primarily cities, right, in Nigeria, shifting from a situation where they are demanding that their role models reflect their life conditions and try to fight for them, to a situation where they have started to fight for their own role models. And in many cases, people who are socially better off than they are, right? So it kind of seems like celebrities have become, in the age of social media, a kind of way in which people diffuse their, the difficulties of their lived situation.
Can you talk back a bit? I didn't get that bit about role models fighting for people or people fighting for role models.
I mean, okay, you're talking about transitions in the music industry, right? There was a point in time in Nigeria, certainly, where like music was aspiring to speak for the downtrodden. And now it seems like we're at the point in time where the downtrodden are speaking for the musicians. I mean, is that putting it a bit too starkly? I was going to go one step further and say that it almost seems like the kind of social media echo chamber and the kind of feeling, the artificial feeling of being part of something larger is creating this situation where people, maybe feel that like there's a kind of similarity between their situation and maybe what Mohbad is facing. But, in practice, there are people whose Naira-related issues are much more severe in a way than Mohbad. So
this Naira-related issue,
yeah, as it were. So I'm like, so that seems to be the kind of thing OAG is raising, and I wonder, Mecca, like, do you think that's unfair, or, I mean, isn't there an extent to which this is a distraction from people's actual more dire lived concerns?
Well,
aren't we protesting about the wrong Naira? That's what I'm saying. I mean, in a way, if I've not beat that analogy to death already.
No. Not at all. I don't agree that we're protesting about the wrong Naira.
That's still part of the big picture.
I think they're all linked, right? I think that part of your question is why is a celebrity triggering this, and why isn't it the quotidian aspects of everyday life that's the trigger for protest? But I'm not going to be looking to legislate for how people are triggered or how they then respond to what they perceive as injustice. I do know one thing though, that Nigerians, if you did a survey, you'd probably realize that over 60% of Nigerians hate oppression. But
I think everybody hates oppression. At least they will say that. They will say they do.
So I wanted to qualify that by saying that it might not look that way because people also stand, aloof, and watch, people get oppressed, especially when, it's by, apparatuses of state. But you see, the thing here is that for this incident, it's how do I say it? It's about some guy who's come from poverty, who is just beginning to come up, who is just on the come up, and then his life is cut short.
Right.
And that the state, can't even, and the state couldn't do anything about it, even though petitions were written and all that stuff. So the more Naira and Kobo thing, that quotidian aspect of everyday living for the Nigerian or for the common man is not something that's going to be triggered immediately. I say that because we just had an election. The guy who's president now got votes, right? You're not, and this is where this is where I think that it's a bit different from NSAS. I mean, so I wouldn't put them on the same footing. Protests, can differ within context. But I guess what I'm saying is the trigger for the kinds of protests that would require for really radical change or to push radical demands or to push even basic demands with the state is not what is not what this is really. And part of, to an extent, what happened with Mohbad wouldn't even be it. Yeah, there were peaceful protests, some were processions. Yeah, but like I said, the impulses for why different people came out to do what they did will differ. So there's no putting it down to one thing. I know I'm struggling to answer this question, but I think that my major contribution here would be that while they're linked, they're not necessarily the same things. Let me leave it there.
Yeah, no, surely they aren't. They arise in different political moments. I mean, their demands are different. Like, there's an extent to which NSAS was itself already a pretty concrete demand. And it started to, as time went on, become even more structural. But then, on the other hand, it seems like this is a slightly vaguer demand, and it doesn't seem to be getting much more structural as time goes on. Like, you said, there are a couple of people who have talked about the music industry more generally, but, the conversation has largely focused on Mohbad and his own family and his own biography. So, is there a sense in which, like, we're seeing the decay that OAG has been talking about also affecting even the popular responses to the decay? Because in a way, I mean, you could argue that NSAS was slightly less material in its orientation than Occupy. And you could argue that this is even less material than NSAS. So, I mean, yeah, OAG, this one's for you, I guess, and interested in Emeka's take as well as we try to wrap up. But is the popular movement also decaying in some ways, or is that too harsh to say?
There are some people who would take
all these things
upside down.
Okay, yeah. How would you take it? Yeah, I mean, whether, yeah.
So I mean, there are people who would say, they'll take it roundabout. So on that scale, the subsidy thing would have been the least. NSAS would have been like a defining moment, and that this would be some sort of offshoot from the NSAS. Offshoots in the sense that the state is not being held to account here. The state is being asked to do its job, or one branch of the state is being asked to do its job to unravel. I mean, just so that people can assure that this guy wasn't killed physically or some kind of damage done. I mean, I think the street is almost made up his mind about the fact that whatever the case is, or whatever the autopsy reports say, Naira Marley is guilty, and him and his henchmen are guilty.
No, but that's the point. That's the point. Is that Occupy? Yeah. You had people talking about the fundamentally corrupt nature of one of the central pillars of the Nigerian political economy, and the result of that protest was that you had a historical shift of power from ruling party to opposition. NSAS focused more so less on the entire governmental apparatus and political economy and more on one branch of the state, which ultimately got renamed. Even though people were trying to propose slightly more radical definitions for the movement, including queer people, including radical leftists, but ultimately it sort of, obviously was suppressed and didn't necessarily grow beyond demands around the police unit. And now, as you're pointing out, popular youth, urban agitation seems to have contracted again and become sort of about the beef within one record label and whether or not the state will come and resolve that beef. So I don't know. I mean, maybe some people might read it the other way around, but I think it's kind of hard to read it the other way around. Or
no. People, you see, now me and you and OAG get time for all this thing where we talk. Let's make we bring them down to that level first. Waiting people want for streets, this simple. All this structural analysis is, maybe in an intellectual pastime. Waiting people.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's not true at all. With Occupy, it wasn't an intellectual pastime. I mean, people were talking about some of the sinews of our political economy on the streets in those days. And with NSAS, it was getting there as well. But so that it's only us on the podcast having that conversation, to me, seems to reflect, to some extent, the decay of the former vibrancy of popular movements in the urban margins.
It don't reflect any decay. Now, and be my own. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
I don't see how it reflects any decay. People are seeking for justice for the death of a musician. I think it's to Mohbad's credit that he was this big an influence. And that the way he was perceived, and how people caught on his music. There was a message in Mohbad's music that people could relate to. I also understand that his music was, transitioning from the happy feel-good vibe to a more philosophical thing. So Mohbad caught the minds of many people, and what we are seeing here is an outpouring of love. Especially
and love is nice, I think there should be justice for Mohbad. I mean, I don't want to suggest in any way that itself is not a good demand, but I'm just saying that, like, from a somewhat objective standpoint, like, you could see a certain constriction in the demands that people are making on the stage. I think that's what OG is saying as well. So,
Essentially, if we stop at this just justice for Mohbad, it's the same, like, it's going that same thread that was the downfall of the NSAS movement, why SARS are still back killing people or harassing people. Is the same way you hear that another record label, will be out here messing with people. If there are no structural changes, of course, it's good that, of course, now from material things like they kill person, we come up for streets, we protest, it go build that consciousness and gearing people towards organizations like this, like organizing and pushing for that structural change. Yeah, that's what we want. So that's the first line of action, Make we no can stop for that first line of action. That's my own, like, this is where I've always stood. Like, we can't keep stopping at that first line of action and hoping that, something will change later or maybe go happen again, Even with the NSAS, police still back, they kill and mess up with people. We are back with Naira free falling. We are back with subsidy, Jagbajantis again. But because we don't push past that first point where all of us did, or Jota, where all of us did, we must push. Yes, it's emotional that person die and all that. Wait a minute.
And I know they really like here say that June, that Occupy 12 for some of them.
Emeka, but the truth is that you've said no, but Emeka, you yourself have said. I mean, you're slightly contradicting yourself if you haven't noticed, because you've said that these protests necessarily always entail multiple impulses. So if you're reducing it to one, just the politicians, then Emeka from 5 minutes ago is confused as to why Emeka from right now is saying that. So
I mean, you can have a laugh, but I've not reduced anything to one.
I understand.
I'm saying
what
the large chunk of the Occupy movement was at the behest of politicians. That's not exactly. Hold on. That's not exactly the case with NSAS. All right.
Really?
And that's not exactly the
Look,
Okay, could
look,
PDP
that's
not
what
spend money for NSAS?
it was
Or
not exactly. No, it wasn't exactly the case with NSAS.
okay,
You know,
so I guess
I mean,
we want
we can dicker over the this thing, but that wasn't the case. I mean, from the get go, part of the opposition to fuel subsidy was from the opposition party, and they were fully involved in that.
yes, of course. I'm not going to take that
wasn't.
away.
It's not the case for this
that's
other
certainly true.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. You know, so
Okay.
it's the import for protesters.
The presence of the opposition party, you could argue, deepened the political content of the protest to some extent.
Well,
it was overtly
fine.
political in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So you know, which pushed us a little closer to raising, if not addressing, questions pertaining to the very nature of our economy and state. It pushed us closer to that, raising those questions, if not addressing them. So, I mean, is there a way to read what's happening now? And this is what I haven't heard. I mean, you've been suggesting it, but I guess I haven't fully heard it yet. Like, is there a way to read what's happening now where this also pushes us that in that direction? Or I mean, are we forced to conclude what in the direction that OAG is going, which is that, in a way, I mean, we've kind of found ourselves moonwalking slightly backwards from a perspective where the urban margins could be mobilized to ask very fundamental questions of state and society. Never mind that some politicians were also trying to gain from the movement, you know, to a situation where the questions being asked are much less fundamental. I mean, I guess, yeah, is there a way to read this as in a more hopeful light? I don't know that I've quite heard that yet in your response, America.
What I keep saying as a positive thing in this is that the speed at which people got together to mobilize themselves, arrange something, put some, like the pressure they brought to bear on the useless elements of the state to at least do the autopsy, generate buzz around it, media stations they talk about them. This is something impressive. Where we say, you know, like it's something that can lead us to something a bit more permanent. That's what I'm saying. If that Occupy won for 2012 now, politician, at least it is around a material demand. NSAS too now, no, they kill us. Life done the day fucked up. Who come bankroll them down on another thing? But if people don't connect with that material demand, it's the same thing. People are connecting with this material demand for justice. Why you gonna go kill young person? And Emeka has shed a lot of light on why people connected or connect with this issue. Because first of all, technology don't change. Vicariously, I they live through the artists where they see every day. The artist where they post, I be like saying, he be my brother. He wake up.
Yeah, so he's your avatar.
So we feel that connection. We feel young person. Me say, I dey hope, say, oh, my music go do this, man. I dey see this guy. I dey, you know, Burna Boy yesterday. We no get this one today. I dey see him daily. You know, and then in come blow. I feel that connection. That's but maybe
maybe that connection is an opium. Right now,
it's what it might be one of it because it creates a pathway. Say maybe Mr. Papi blow. It gives hope to a teeming population of hopeless youths with the outside.
Yeah,
you know? And then
maybe it's an opium because like
I might not call it that. I don't want to call it that because you know make it just be say maybe we not just. I don't want to call it that, but you know say it just gives hope to people. It makes people have that one-on-one connection. It'd be like say yo my followers. People that are following you, people that they watch their live. It's like they are talking to you directly. You know, so from that one, that person can't die under mysterious circumstances. You won't find out, say, why this guy, you know, especially with our again, young people, they kind of run discourse for Nigeria and all that. So people want to find out why this guy died. That's one of the major explanations for why people connected with it. Of course, you know, music, cultural stuff, demographics. There are a lot of things, you know, we come together to coalesce to why a lot of people come out. You know, even if it's for clout, for all these celebrities where they jump on and we don't really care about them. All these things make it come together.
Including politicians now, right? You know, the National Assembly today had a moment of silence. Politicians have been going to visit the parents. So if you're saying that politicians are part of course, why wouldn't they be? I mean, it
Yeah,
makes sense.
so even
So
for
yeah,
them, they do challenge, they do TikTok challenge, everybody they do, So, but these are around material things. If you know be material stuff, people know will come out. That's the material component of it. However, how do we progress past this stage that has always plagued every movement where everybody don't come out, say, okay, oh, Mo no stop at this thing. Let's the record label, let's now be fixing how record labels will take day. Let's now be fixing, of course, it will start from consciousness level. And Emeka has said, if this one say, okay, how we're going to be arranging our record labels and all our new artists, that's a huge gain, but we must still move fast. Yeah, we must move fast, make they can't threaten artists, or maybe if you say they use muscle men, or let's have a system that works, a system that guarantees people, if you say police system and all this is a function, as they don't write the petition, they don't call the Naira Marley guy, they don't call everybody, they don't settle him. Maybe the guy never for don't die. Now, so who knows? But what I don't just want is for us to stop at this certain points where you go come be like, say, the work go they hard to start again until calamity happen. That's always been my own. Of course, it's going to be around the material demand. There's always going to be a material demand, and we can't knock the masses for jumping up on that material demand and following through. We won't knock them up. It's the same thing with elections. Elections, fine. Elections are more, to me, elections are mode of organizing or mobilizing the people towards, okay, if we get it right, we get it right. But we need a structural change of a political system that is based on money, that is exclusive, such that people no go fee, if you no get billions, you no go fee participate or be player for so there are much structural questions to ask, and that's the frontiers where they push, but we must respect where the level of consciousness of people and their material demands at this point in time. That's just my own take on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Emeka, any other thoughts?
Yeah, my own is just that I think that sometimes missing in our own analysis is a recognition of the fact of how bad things are in terms of a malaise, which is what I think that you're speaking to.
Yes,
so I think I get that bit, and I even get it to the point where sometimes I get irritated by
trending hashtags.
Not even just trending, the kind of analysis that goes around it, One example for me is, sometimes when I make the mistake of debating the social experiment called Big Brother, how condescending, people can be, especially within the intellectual class about, the experiment, itself, And I find it almost hypocritical to the extent that I'm like, this is just a reflection. This is a reflection of view of society in a mirror. Why is it that you can't stand what you see? And that's how, I figure it, So part of what I was thinking about while Luigi was talking about, I hadn't quite thought about it. What's the makeup of, those who went out in protest of Mohbad?
Justice. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Most of the guys who I have heard discuss this are frat boys, and you'll be shocked. Frat boys across different frats, who are sympathetic to the fact
what you're calling frats, some other people will call gangs, right? In Nigeria, or cults.
Cults. Okay. Cults.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, just to clarify for people who might not be.
You're right there. So so that's fine. Now, Marina Peckham gangster, right?
Right.
Niger gangsters identify with Mohbad past Naira Marley on this issue. I think that's where the base is, like, right now. These are the guys who are interacting. They're people, a couple of middle class Nigerians who like the vibe of Ukpo, and all of that, all of that, those slangs that he brought into, But I think that we also forget that what's happened in Nigerian music industry is also some kind of cultural revolution.
Okay.
So that's the scale on which all of the conversation that we're having around Mohbad's demise is operating on. And it's a cultural revolution that was driven by, let me just put it down to capitalist money. Make we forget the source. You understand? So now capitalism don't ship this thing. You understand? And it don't ship them in the sense that the guys we bring in the capital won't maintain hierarchical order. Now that hierarchical order where they won't maintain, they show for the kind of contracts with them they sign with all these small boys, with them they fleece them, there's a bit of an intersection between that and the state, and that's reflected partly in that instance where Mohbad is said to have written a petition to the IG of police or CP of police, wherever, and that nothing was done about it, So it's almost to the base of Mohbad's fans for Mohbad's fan base. What's being said, what's being asked here is, or what's being implied here is that these cultists who are the money bags within the industry, who are heads of record labels, have now been colluding with the police to suppress the investigation as to what led to this guy's death.
Sure.
And I think that that's the base level where this thing is operating right now. To say that this is where it stopped would be us preempting or me preempting what can happen after the autopsy result has been released, and boy, you don't want to hear what people are saying about Sam Larry. I mean, it can be mouthed, it can be as they say, but the guy is not even safe himself. So these guys will chill. They'll take a backstage, for a while, because it's not even. This is not social media at the vex. No, this is, if we catch him for street, we will treat him for cop. There are even artists who have gone as far as tweeting, subtle threats like that.
Definitely. Particularly those that are a little closer to the cult scene, right?
Yeah. So I think the point I'm trying to make, to leave it at the level of where the conversation is at the street, which is why I kind of said that it's you and I and OAG that are worrying about the structural aspects of all of this. These guys have beef to settle, and it is simply that Mohbad doesn't even belong to any of these cults or gangs, but he had talent. He entertained them. He entertained people, and that's why that's there's a diverse. So for me, it's let's see what happens afterwards. I almost expect that the autopsy report will come out and say that the cause of death, that there was nothing.
It's natural causes.
So how would people then react to that? So what kinds of demands will be made as a result of that? But where people like you and I probably can come in is to say, oh, this is beyond this now. Right? Mohbad don't go. But how do we look to solve? How do we look to push conversations? I guess that's. I expect people are interested. Maybe OAG, who is interested in the music industry or who's been a player in the music industry, comes up with some kind of startup, to cater to the needs, contractual needs.
But it's also interesting to see that, the kind of responses available to us range from tweeting to starting a business. But no, fair enough. And I think, yeah, if our task is to bring in some intellectualism to an intercult squabble, then that's a task that we've probably done a decent job of doing today, right? So we should probably leave it there. And I think we'd be remiss if we ended the conversation without, extending a heartfelt condolence to the family, the fans, but RIP to Mohbad, and the family.
RIP.
And definitely justice for Mohbad, right? Like, obviously
that's the first line of action,
that would be essential. So it's worth stating that if it's not already clear that we definitely support that in itself. But certainly we'd be interested in seeing the demand for justice deepen, and take on the wider issues in the industry and in society more generally. Right.
Make capital play with labor in due wage.
So make capital no they literally strangle labor out and kill them, So
Otherwise let labor
let labor breathe.
Yeah. Indeed.
All right, man.
Anyway, I guess we leave it there, right?
All right, guys.
Okay. No, bad. Take care.
Hey. Don't finish me.